Hi everyone, this is Summer, and this is the first episode of my digital diary. So, today's topic is why we take photos. It's a topic that came up when I was reading a book that I'm still working on called All the Beauty in the World by Patrick Fringely. It's a memoir, it's more like a memoir actually, about a museum guard who worked at the Met for 10 years. And in that, it talked about how many visitors take photos of the art. And I'm so guilty of that too. Whenever I go to a new museum or travel abroad, or just like in my day to day life, I often take pictures and document those moments that I think are special. And it led me to wonder, why do I suddenly like taking photos so much? Because when I was younger, taking photos was associated with annoyance, a force of something I didn't want to do but had to do. I thought it was stupid that I had to like hold a random pose in front of my mom's phone because she wanted to take a picture. I never really understood the meaning or the why behind it. And this has definitely changed over the years because now I often find myself taking photos of wanting to document the world and the people around me, and often even urging my grandparents to take photos or me taking photos of them. And why has this happened? What resulted in this change? My first thought would be, oh, peer pressure. People around me are starting to do it, so I should follow as well. But I think there's a deeper meaning behind why we take photos. I think it's because we want to document a moment, or more specifically, an emotion. We document because we don't want to forget, or we fear the possibility of forgetting. We see those special documented moments as special and desired, in comparison to the day-to-day life that's labeled as mundane and often taxing. But how do we differentiate from good and bad? Why didn't we feel this need when we were younger? Well, youth is often labeled as carefree, happiness, innocence. It's labeled as worryless and enjoyment. And when most of your world is without stakes and is just happiness, you don't feel as much of a need to document those moments because it's most of what you know. But in comparison, adulthood, growing, maturing, and society is often perceived with more stress, with more pressure, with more responsibility to do well, and more expectation to succeed and reach stability. It's often more restricting, even though it's said that you have more freedom. If youthhood were an unplanted seed, adulthood would be a steadily growing sprout, desiring to one day grow into a blooming flower or thriving tree. Even society tells you that as you grow, there are more stakes, there are more responsibilities. You have to pay taxes, you have to do all these things that you aren't expected as a child. Because when you're a child, you're still growing. Even though I think that you're growing either way, whether you're an adult or a child. Because life is just full of growing. But anyways, that's beside the point. And because of the expectations and the responsibility, the moments of happiness, of true freedom, and of true release of emotion, be it frustration, anger, or sadness, becomes rare. It suddenly becomes worthy of documentation. Something like simply crying or feeling excitement is now worthy of documentation, when you were still young, it would just be another day of living. And documentation is great. I get to remember the things that I felt were exciting to me or fulfilling to me, and I get to reflect upon them and be filled with joy. But I often feel that at the core of my desire to take pictures is fear. The fear of forgetting. The fear of losing. I fear that if I don't take that picture of my grandparents, or that mountain in Iceland, or that sausage in Beijing, or that video of my axle when I landed in practice, that I will one day forget when they are gone. And I fear that once that moment of forgetfulness hits me, I will regret it and blame my younger self for not documenting those moments. However, the fondest of my memories are often not the ones I documented, but instead the ones I felt and experienced and truly lived through. My fondest memory in Iceland weren't the ones I pictured, but instead they were drinking water from the glacier, or just simply sitting and looking at the mountains around me at the top of the 3-hour hike. I didn't think, I didn't take my phone out, I didn't do anything. I just simply sat there and sat with the silence and looked at the nature and the world around me. My fondest memories with my best friend Ella weren't the pretty photos we took together, but instead our hour-long FaceTime calls talking about random shit and our moments of opening albums. My fondest memory of my grandma weren't the pictures I have of her, but instead the hugs I would receive when I were feeling down, and the stories she would tell me about her childhood. My fondest memories of my other friend Abigail aren't her selfies, but instead the talks we had and our debates we had on our way back from New York, and the conversations about being each other's trash bins at school, and how it's really refreshing to have someone to talk to when so much of what you say at school is expected to be filtered and to be thought of. All of my fondest memories are moments of action, of true feeling, in living. I'm often so wrapped up in not forgetting that I forget to live. Maybe it's time that photos don't document a specific moment, but instead act as a representation to your feelings, of your presence, and of your thinking. Maybe it's time that we stop labeling what's good and bad, but instead simply experience and remember because you want to, not because you should. To quote the book I've been reading, we want possession, something to put in our pockets and carry away. Except what if nothing very beautiful fits into our pockets, and only the tiniest sliver of what we see or experience can ever be possessed? I think that maybe we should all be more like the author and take pleasure in the flash and sparkle of the scene. One thing I really want to get better at is to live instead of trying not to forget, to stay in the present instead of worrying about the future. And I hope next time you whip out your phone to document a moment, you can think of really feeling it as well.